A new CNN SSRS poll finds that less than a third of voters would prefer President Biden over former President Donald Trump to handle the issue of immigration. As migrant crime is surging across this country, 4 illegal Venezuelan migrants appearing in court today for a status detention hearing out in Chicago. They are facing attempted murder charges after video shows the group allegedly attacking and robbing a 49-year-old man on a train back in February. You can see one suspect putting the man in a chokehold, initially leaving that victim unconscious. Meanwhile, a Haitian migrant charged with the rape of a 15-year-old girl in Massachusetts in a hotel, released on $500 bail last week. I want to bring in National Border Patrol Council Vice President Art Del Cueto. Art, of course, if we secured the border, stopped the flow of illegal immigration, we would have less crime to report. It seems that things are only getting worse. Why are we still seeing so many of these criminals, and I'm thinking of the criminal from Ecuador, still able to get into this country?
Well, a lot of it is because at the same time that you're seeing big groups that come across, they ask for asylum, they get released in the United States, you have the gotaways. You have a lot of these gotaways because agents are too busy in the processing centers. That's part of the problem. And you know what? I've said it many times before. The drug cartels, the smuggling organizations, they control what comes across the border. And they're very much aware that if they do flood one area with large groups, they know that's going to add that distraction that allows them to have those gaps in the border where they continue to bring in groups into the United States, the gotaways. And the scary part is it's so easy to come across, ask for asylum, and get released. You know, it's just these individuals that are the gotaways, they're the ones that have serious criminal backgrounds. And looking at the percentages, that 28% that thinks that the current administration can handle this, they're either living under a rock or it is part of the group of the criminals that want to continue bringing illegals and continue to bring crime into the United States right now.
I want to ask you about this because I had Congressman Andy Barr on earlier this week, and he was talking about what he had just seen at the border on his trip and what he thinks needs to happen right now. Watch.
They need the wall. They need infrastructure. There's some technology there. They don't have enough Border Patrol agents because the Biden administration is reprogramming literally $1 billion that Congress has appropriated. They're reprogramming away from recruiting new agents. But what they told me they need the most is infrastructure, a physical barrier that allows them time to actually apprehend these individuals. There's 70 miles of steel bollards of barrier that is on private property being stored. This was wall material that was acquired during the Trump administration that the Biden administration refused to erect.
What do you make of his comments, and how fast could that happen?
Look, I mean, it happened pretty fast under the last administration. They were working on it right away. But look, infrastructure is very important, but you're going to need policies. And I think the policies is a big deal because the policies doesn't cost the taxpayer that much money. Look, under the last administration, just by not releasing people, that lowers the numbers. You need those policies mixed in with the proper infrastructure, with the right equipment to stop this. And one of those big policies is detaining people and not releasing them. And they'll realize that. The cartels know, hey, the word is out. Hey, when you come across, ask for asylum, you get released. Well, on the other flip side, the word will be out. It's not that easy. If you come across, they're going to detain you. They're going to make you prove your case before they release you. And you look, it's going to be a lot of work, I'll be honest, because there's millions that this administration has already allowed in, and there has to be a plan to find out where those individuals are and give them their day in court, obviously, but you have to detain them and stop releasing individuals, and that is one of the big major issues. Stop
processing and start detaining. Tricia McLaughlin's got a question for you. Tricia, go ahead.
Art, I have to ask, I got to bring politics back into this. We've been talking a lot about the Democrat nominee, and of course now there's buzz about the Vice President Kamala Harris. From your experience, and I think what you're hearing on the ground, do people feel like Kamala Harris is going to handle the border any differently than Joe Biden? Who would you prefer?
Look, she's been the border czar, and she's been non-existent on the border. So that alone is what tells the whole story. At the end of the day, you need somebody that really has shown, cares about our nation's borders, and can do the job. And you got to admit, this administration, By their rhetoric alone, first day of office, the border has been in chaos. They've been ignoring the chaos. They were denying the chaos. And up until recently, they tried to do something about it. But even those steps that they tried to do have not been enough. In fact, they've created even more of a problem.
I want to bring up another issue here about the border. The U.S. has just agreed to cover the cost for flights to help Panama deport illegal migrants that are crossing the Darien Gap, as they're trying to obviously move north to the U.S. Under this deal, the U.S. will offer up equipment, logistics, charter flights, commercial plane tickets to send illegal migrants back to their home countries. The program entirely under Panama's control. U.S. has no say on who they deport. I had Senator Tommy Tuberville on with me earlier this week. He was talking about the issue of the Darien Gap, and he was in Panama. Watch this.
Right. I'm right now sitting in Panama City, Panama, getting ready to go to the inauguration of the new president, Jose Molino, who is a big populist. He wants to stop the Darien Gap, and that's where a lot of these people come through from Central America. And so that's a huge plus for the American people, and I'm looking forward to talking with him and spending some time with him. He could really make a difference for us in our country if he would do the right thing in the Darien Gap and slow the trafficking down, at least for the next 5 or 6 months till we replace the Democrats.
What do you make of that?
Look, that would be huge. Any help is necessary. But look, I'm one of those guys that I believe that at the end of the day, if the United States is the country that's having to deal with all these individuals that are coming in illegally, then they should have the say on who they're deporting, who they're sending back, because that needs to just stop. It's been a mess. Like I said, look, everyone's tired, everyone's overworked down on the border, and at the same time, they're not seeing any help anytime soon. But so any little help that is available is very important. But at the end, I'm saying, look, the United States has to be the one that controls a lot of that because they're the ones that are suffering.
Artel Cueto, it's great to always talk to you about the border, and thanks for all your hard work, especially down in Arizona. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
All right.